So one very important point as it relates to this truth that we align ourselves with the world is this. We are worldly in our rejection of Jesus and love for evil. We are worldly in our rejection of Jesus and love for evil. So Van, would you read John chapter 3, verses 19 and 20?
This is the judgment. The light has come into the world, and people loved darkness rather than the light because their deeds were evil. For everyone who does evil hates the light and avoids it, so that his deeds may not be exposed.
Right, so this is profound. Jesus is the light. He is morally pure, and he reveals the truth of God and exposes people in light of God's truth. He's come into the world, but people reject Jesus, reject his revelation because they love darkness and they fear being exposed. So to summarize that, we oftentimes reject Jesus, we love our sinful ways, delight in our sinful ways, and we fear being exposed. So Van, even though you became a Christian years ago, as we said, we're still vulnerable to worldly influences. So Van, is there an example in your life of how you reject the light, the revelation of Jesus, you love your sinful ways, or you fear being exposed, whether it was back then or even now?
Well, growing up, I absolutely had areas where I didn't want to be exposed. I mean, I was sneaking around, when I was younger, maybe in high school, with friends, sneaking out of the house, not wanting to get caught. And it just got worse and worse as I got older and when I got to college. And one of the groups that we talked about that I identified with was a fraternity, which, fraternities aren't all bad, but I loved the parties at nighttime. I loved, acting like there's not a care in the world and I'm free and I can do what I want. And
yet you didn't want your mom to know.
Yeah, exactly. At the same time, I didn't want family members, my mom, to know that that's what I was doing in college, rather than studying and working and getting good grades. So what's interesting is, I wasn't committing the most graphic sins in the world, and you don't have to be committing the most graphic sins in the world to be aligned with the world. My manipulative actions and character and the way I was sneaking around aligned me with the world in itself.
And I would add, if I can interject, simultaneously was demonstrating your rejection of Jesus, even if you weren't thinking about that explicitly. When we align ourselves with the world, when we become overly enamored with the world, we are simultaneously saying to God, I don't want to align myself with you, your Messiah, and your revealed will for my life.
Right.
So in my life, I'll tell a story of something that happened before I became a Christian. I was at college. This was my first year of college, and I started interacting with a Christian Athletes in Action staff member. He shared the gospel with me a time or two. His name was John Maurer. He shared the gospel with me a time or two, and then he set up an appointment with me, let's say, to meet at like 10 a.m. And I slept in, and I didn't really have any desire to meet with him because I had heard everything that he had said to me about turning to God, and I didn't want to hear it. So he would show up at my dorm room at 10 a.m. He knew I was inside sleeping. He knew I was inside hiding. And he would be pounding on the door trying to get in to wake me up. And I think that that was an incredibly profound word picture of what was happening in my life, is that I heard just a little bit of light. I heard just enough of Jesus and God the Father, heard about my sin. I heard just enough to say, I don't want that, and I'm going to lock the door and lie there very quietly in the dark so that God's truth can't come in. And God have mercy on us, because what a terrible, terrible, terrible tragedy when we try to keep God at arm's length.